Thanks for joining us for our weekly show of discussion. It's called Moral Side of the News. I'm John Blim with the WHAS Crusade for Children, and we're glad you're here with us. Joining me is a distinguished panel, as always this week, Reverend David Harkleroad, South Point Church, New Albany, Rabbi Emeritus Stan Miles, Temple of Shalom, Father John Stoltz, St. Aloysius Catholic Church, and Reverend Jason Crosby, Crescent Hill Baptist Church. Our first topic: more than 50,000 attended the Kentucky Derby in person last weekend as health officials hold their breath about possible spikes in COVID cases as a result. Governor Andy Beshear says we need to pick up the pace on vaccination, while President Biden wants 70% of adult Americans vaccinated by July 4th. Meantime, the FDA is expected to approve the Pfizer vaccine for children as more of the country is opening up, including sports like the Louisville Bats baseball games at reduced capacity. So now we turn to our panel on Moral Side of the News. Let's get your read on this, and how do you feel things are going?
I think things are going reasonably well. What I cannot understand is now all of a sudden we have all of this vaccine and people are reluctant to get vaccinated. I'm really pleased that now younger people, kids, will have access to the vaccine, and I just hope that more people will get the vaccine so that we can end this pandemic. I was a bit terrified with the Derby last weekend because I saw lots of folks really nicely dressed, but I also saw lots of folks who really weren't social distancing at all, and they were quite unmasked. So the jury is out for the next 2 weeks to see what social distancing and unmasking will do to our community. I pray that we will not have a spike because of Derby.
Well, it's my understanding that about 32% of the nation has been vaccinated. And I don't remember if that's 32% who've gotten one vaccination or are fully vaccinated. I don't recall that in the statistics, but something, approaching that, about a third of the nation. I think that that's great. And I think that it seems also what I hear on the news is that the number of people approaching vaccination seems to be slowing down some. And what I think the approach is needed here is it's kind of a selling of the selling of the vaccine to people to really urge them to do it for the sake of their own safety and for the sake of other people's safety as well. I understand that some people may have real concerns. Say of maybe an allergy. That's a very small percentage of people, or there may be some folks who medically cannot receive it. That may also be a really small percentage of people who can't do that. I think that from what I read, and I'm by no means an expert, the vast majority of people can receive the vaccination. And I think it's a good thing to do. We're being urged by scientists, by medical professionals to receive it as well. And so for the good, I think that leadership, cultural leadership, in the sense of doctors and other health professionals, and including clergy, are called to, I think, encourage people for the sake of the community, the health community, to urge people to receive it. And now it is so much more available than it was some time ago, that it's easier now, I think, to receive it than it was before. And so just an encouragement to do that. And there's some places that, are really suffering in our world, like India right now, that we can watch and see that there's just so much suffering due to COVID, and in other places in the world too, that all of us, in a sense, because a virus doesn't know a nation or a territory. I mean, the fact is, we all in our globe need to do practices to keep us healthy, and doing it for ourselves is actually doing it for one another. In terms of making ourselves healthy, it's also helping other people be healthy as well. And so I think we just need a sense of encouragement around there for one another, for each other.
Yeah, thank you, Father John. I concur. I guess I have a kind of a smorgasbord of thoughts on the matter. First of all, I wonder if Kentucky should follow the lead of some other states. John, to your point about encouraging or incentivizing the vaccine, if I'm not mistaken, West Virginia is offering $100 to folks who receive the vaccine. And I believe I read last week, I believe the state of Pennsylvania is offering, they've partnered with various breweries, and you can receive some beer if you get your vaccine. So perhaps Kentucky could come up with some incentive system. Secondly, I'm thrilled not only that young people 12 and up apparently will now be good to get the vaccine. Also, the word that came out that come September, it looks like authorization will go through with the FDA for kids 2 to 11. As a father of 2 children in that age range, and just thinking about what school will look like in the fall, I was just surprised at how much relief and gladness I sensed when I saw that news. So grateful for that. In terms of the Derby, isn't it ironic? The largest sporting event that has been held in the United States in over a year took place in Kentucky, and the state of Kentucky has been very conservative under Governor Beshear's leadership and how this situation has been handled. And then last week, we become essentially the face of the throw away the mask movement. I just think it's unique or unusual that now, I think in some respects, that was an unusual look for the state of Kentucky, given how we have operated throughout the pandemic. The last thing that I would add is that, John, I do think that your word about this being a global pandemic is important for us to remember at this juncture, given what's happening in India. And I hope and pray that whatever red tape rules and regulations are in place, that those can be cut through quickly, so that because of the dwindling vaccine supply, we can get that vaccine to places around the globe that need it. And I lied one other point, and then I will be quiet. And David, I want to hear from you. I think we're reaching a point where folks are making a decision about what they want to do with the vaccine. And it's obvious that people are now electing not to get it. At this point, or in the next few weeks, we will be at a point where if you live in the state of Kentucky, you can get a vaccine and a second shot and a 2-week period for that second vaccine to reach full efficacy. I think at a certain point in the next few weeks, we're going to, as a society, get to the point where, okay, if you choose not to get it, I hope you will. It's for your own sake as well as others. And I hope you'll get it. But at a certain point, then folks have to assume that risk. That's your responsibility. And I feel like we're reaching that tipping point where because enough folks have it, then those who choose not to get it, they're bearing that risk. And I think that we're reaching that point as a state and as a community. David? Sorry I went on so long.
No, you're good. I appreciate your thoughts, Jason. I agree with what you just said. You know, at some point we can incentivize, we can do these things, but people have a right to follow their conscience. They have a right to make their own decision on this. So I think you're right. There comes a tipping point where we have it available and people get to make their own call. I'm really happy with the reopening. I think there's a lot of moral good in reopening our economy, our society. There's relational good and economic good. There's emotional and mental health involved. So I think there's a lot of positives in reopening. And I don't think caution and proactivity for prevention are necessarily different or stand against or incongruous with reopening. We often have to deal with this question of like productivity and safety. We make those decisions every time we get in the car or when we have construction jobs or factory jobs, I think that we can hold these two things together and say, yeah, we need to reopen and we need to be proactive about being safe and healthy. So I just think it's good for all involved that we have things starting to move again. I think that it's good to continue to be wise, but I think we're seeing numbers move the right direction overall. And just I'm happy with that. And again, just agreeing with Jason, I think at the end of the day, folks will get to sort of decide for themselves what they do with the vaccine. But we've seen a lot of folks come out and get vaccinated already.
Yeah, following up with a question, how confident are you, John, Jason, you both mentioned India is a big trouble spot, and we know that it is. How confident are you that worldwide the vaccine will be shared across the globe with countries that may not get it otherwise?
I think it's the responsibility of those nations that have the patents, have the vaccines, and can provide availability to do so without compromising the number of people in those individual countries who can and will receive the vaccines.
Yeah, I simply want to state I agree with Stan. There's a couple issues I see. They're connected. One is a moral issue that I think we have providing for those who maybe nations, peoples who really may not be able to afford it like we can, that somehow that they get access. I think that's very important to do for a moral basis because they're humans, they have dignity, and they have that right, I think. And the second reason is connected to it, and that is the sense of the global nature of health, that we really cannot, it's my understanding as I hear about this, is that we really cannot consider ourselves healthy, participating in the world, if there are parts of the world that are not healthy with a contagious disease. And there's a sharing that we've got, a connectedness that we have in health that we have to acknowledge. I think both of those reasons, the health reason and the moral reason, say that we have an obligation to those in other parts of the world that somehow the vaccination is available to them. Now, I think that there's time issues there, and there's logistical issues for that to bring that around, and that has to be taken into consideration. And some of that legal issues, I think, in sense of world legalities have to be looked at as well. But I certainly think we can get there, and we certainly, I think we need the sense and need that we must go there in terms of seeking out healing for everyone and protection for everyone in this way.
And John, if I can just piggyback on that real quickly. I'd add a third dimension to the two that you just put forth, and that is, as long as there are large numbers of people across the globe that are not vaccinated, that also then is a breeding ground for variants to continue to emerge. And those variants will continue to circulate, and there's continued concern that one of these variants may be resistant to vaccines that are in place. So in order to cut off that possibility of a vaccine as it's currently developed, some sort of strain being resistant to one of those vaccines, we need to snuff out any form of COVID as quickly as possible around the globe, or it could snap back on us. It could continue to be a domestic issue if we don't deal with it internationally.
Berea College in Kentucky announced this week that in the fall, only students who are vaccinated will be welcomed back. Your thoughts on that, and other schools that might do the same or not do the same?
I think for the health and safety of a student body and a faculty population, and also the people who run the university, I think that I applaud that proactivity, because they're simply trying to keep their folks safe. It makes all the sense in the world, and so I see nothing wrong with it whatsoever.
Yeah, I personally, I think the school has the right to do it, but we're going to see whether, public consensus, people will vote with their feet. It's going to be interesting to see what schools do this and which ones don't, and how people respond. I personally would not want to be required to be vaccinated to go to a college. Again, just looking at some of the statistics, this week I was calculating the crude mortality rate for COVID is lower than the crude mortality rate for an automobile accident. So it's not the risk that I think the liberals have painted it to be. And I would personally not want to see that happen if I were attending a school. But I think the school has the right, and I think we'll see. I think the numbers will show what people think about it.
Yeah, certainly as a private institution, Berea is in a position where they're more than able to do so. I would say that I think, though, we're going to see this not just in higher ed, but I think we're going to see it in the workplace and various businesses and how they handle it. Part of what it comes down to is an institution like Berea, it's a cost-benefit analysis. Yes, it's about health and safety. I get it. But the other dynamic is in order to function as an organization, in addition to keeping people safe, you got to have students in the classroom. You got to have teachers that are healthy to teach in order to keep the institutional engine moving. And in order to do that safely and ensure that costs are covered, that kind of requirement makes sense from that point of view. And I think we'll see it in other places where you need to have employees at the desk or in the factory. And I think private businesses are going to be the next frontier where that's going to happen. And I understand it.
And now we're looking at the sense of motivation. And so Berea College is one small aspect of that, but you take a look in the larger sense of the whole issue around vaccinations and encouraging people, that I would think around this, the better approach to take, although I agree Berea has this right, and also they're trying to reduce risk for the health of their community. And so I get an understanding. I'm thinking in the larger sense, though, I don't know if the message from various institutions or to people is about requirements so much as it is that, but also to try to come from a perspective of encouragement and selling. So approaching a better sense than sort of laying down a law, because when people hear that, they immediately want to go to freedom and freedom for themselves, which is a right, but not necessarily the freedom then tends to be freedom for self, a freedom in that way. And here we're talking about a freedom for others. And there's a sense of, I think, a better message to really get more people to do it is not a message of you have to do it, you're required to do it, there's ramifications or sanctions if you don't, but rather a message of encouraging people to do it, to say this is not only in your best interest, but it's also in the best interest of people around you, that everyone will be much healthier. And in a sense, more of a positive sell than a legislative kind of rule. Although I recognize that institutions may do that for the sake of their safety. And I don't question that.
All right, very good. We're a little more than halfway through our program, Moral Side of the News, this week, and we'll move on to our second topic. A legal challenge against Jefferson County Public Schools tax increase is heading to the state Supreme Court. It stems from a circuit court judge ruling in October that a petition against the tax increase was invalid, which allowed the tax increase to take effect without facing voters. Now an appeal of that ruling heads to the Kentucky Supreme Court. The proposed tax is a 7% property tax increase. That's about $70 a year on a $100,000 home. Turning to our panel on Moral Side of the News, let's get your thoughts on the tax increase.
I think that our public schools desperately need it, both from the perspective of infrastructure and for the perspective of backing and helping our educators. Not everyone involved with education over the past 14 months has really been on the front line of the pandemic, whether they were back in the classroom on site or whether they had to just totally change their methodology in teaching, going from being in the classroom to being in front of a camera on Zoom. And we need to enhance our system. We need to bring our system up to where we can change technologically just on a day's notice. And certainly those things don't happen automatically. Also, if you look at so many of our school buildings, particularly in Jefferson County, these school buildings were built 50, 60, 70 years ago. They need either great refurbishment or tremendous or absolute replacement. So we need to get this job done, and it is the responsibility of us as taxpayers to do this.
I won't speak to this issue in particular, but I will speak in this way, that spending on education and spending it well is an investment in community. It's an investment. Sometimes we look at education as training for particular individuals for jobs. And actually, it is just so much more than that. When you look at it as an investment, what you're doing is you're educating a people and in a sense, giving them a gift. And that gift can continue to return back to society. When we train and educate our students in our school, we're educating future writers, future doctors, future inventors, future entrepreneurs. In a sense, people that will bring our society to growth in the future. And so it's very important that we spend that money and we spend it well, and actually to look at it not so much as money that once it's given, it's gone, but rather to look at it as an investment. And that does mean, I agree with Stan, that our infrastructure needs to be kept up to date and strengthened, especially where the infrastructure is weak and poor. So I think there's that continuous need, and to look at education then as a public good that is needed.
Yeah, I'll just say briefly, I am a Southern Indiana resident. I'm not a Kentucky resident or taxpayer, but I'm a big fan of school choice. We have the voucher system here in Southern Indiana, and I think one of the things it does, I think it's a win for the taxpayers and the students. But part of what it does is it makes sure the money is getting into the schools that are working, and it's a system that I think helps schools succeed, helps the dollars get where they need to be. It's in one sense just sort of a built-in security to make sure the schools are handling their funds well, doing what they're supposed to be doing. So again, not a voter in Louisville, but certainly a big fan of school choice.
All right, panel, in about 4 weeks' time, we'll be wrapping up the 68th annual WHAS Crusade for Children to help make life better for children with special needs. About 200 agencies each year are funded by the crusade. So in our closing 2 or 3 minutes, your thoughts on what you can share to inspire others to give.
Well, I guess I'm one of the newest members to one of the advisory boards or panels that listens to the grants when they are brought to the crusade. And one thing that's just been astounding to me is the geographical scope. I hope folks that might be seeing this today understand that crusade money goes from nearly as far away in Kentucky as Paducah to Eastern Kentucky, and it's really meeting the needs of children with largely special needs It's just been remarkable for me to see the breadth of the lives across the Commonwealth and beyond that are really impacted by the crusade. So
I agree completely. And that is also something that I've learned in serving with the crusade and being and serving on moral side. Learning more about the crusade is the network, the area that it covers is something I did not know. And I've always thought of it, my assumption was that it was a Louisville only institution. I am connecting it with a sense of this Kentucky, Indiana identity, that this is such a point of something that we can be proud of, as something that is just so great to do. And so in supporting children in this way, and the people's generosity, our neighbors' generosity, the people around us who give is something we applaud and are grateful for and thank. And for our city to do this good work and join together in this way, it's just if you reflect on it, it just brings you so much joy.
Yeah, thank you. I would just encourage anyone to jump on the website, whascrusade.org. There's so many ways to give. I was just exploring this week. There's Venmo, PayPal. You can sit at home and tell your Alexa you want to donate to the Crusade for Children. So there's a lot of ways to give, and this is a real impact. Earlier someone was talking about an investment with the school kids. The same is true here. This is an investment with a 100% return because it's into human beings, and yes. I think it's a wonderful thing.
We had a crusade last year. Thank God it wasn't what we hoped for. So this year, with everything opening up, we've got to make up for lost time. Those kids really need it.
Outstanding. Thank you all both. And David, you took the words right out of my mouth. Go to whascrusade.org to learn more. Thank you to David Harkleroad, Stan Miles, John Stoltz, and Jason Crosby.
Seems like a cliche. People have been saying it about the pandemic. We're all in this together. Well, the crusade is something that we've all been in together for many, many years.
And these amazing machines that saved her life, I just remember seeing WHAS Crusade for Children.
For those of you who contribute to the crusade, just want to personally say thank you. It's helped so many families just like mine. We wouldn't be here without you.
The 68th annual WHAS Crusade for Children is right around the corner, June 5th and 6th. Please help out. More than 200 agencies are supported by your generosity to the crusade. You can find out more at whascrusade.org. You can also text to donate. The word crusade, text that word to 50155. Text crusade to 50155. You can also use Venmo and PayPal. New this year, if you'd like to catch this program again, just jump on YouTube and search for Moral Side of the News. We'll be back again next week with another edition of our program. Until then, be safe, be well, and thank you, panel.